The Dukes of Dice are brought to you by Game Toppers, the dog days of summer, and listeners like you.
Welcome to the Duchy. It's time for another episode of the Dukes of Dice podcast, a proud member of the Dice Tower Network.
Coming to you from the Duchy in the New City, Albuquerque, New Mexico, and the Gateway City, St. Louis, Missouri, it's the Dukes of Dice, a podcast about board card and occasionally role-playing games. Today, the Dukes review Under Falling Skies from CGE. Then they take a look back at their review of Sorcerer City in their Dukes Double Take. And now, the Dukes of Dice.
Hey there, everybody! Welcome back to the podcast. This is Sean.
And also Alex.
And this is episode 254, Flying Sorcerer City. Yeah, you heard me, Sorcerer City. That name title from Jimmy DM90. Is name title redundant? Have I had this conversation before?
You might have. Not recently.
Okay, well, the title suggestion, Jimmy DM90, Flying Sorcerer City instead of Sorcerer City, because we're talking about flying saucers in Under Falling Skies, and of course we're talking about Sorcerer City in our Duke's Double Take. So very clever name, Jimmy, way to go. In fact, we get help naming all of our episodes from our amazing Dukes of Dice guild members over on Board Game Geek, guild number 2008. And we've got some runners up that they provided, which we will tell you about at the end of the episode. Alex, how am I doing?
You're doing fine.
No, I'm just saying, like, normally I'd say, Alex, how are you doing? But I don't care because I'm off work for the next 3 work days. We're recording early, a day earlier than we normally do. I'm off Thursday, Friday for Sean Con, the 3rd annual. Thanks to COVID, should be the 4th annual, but it's only the 3rd annual. And then I'm taking Monday off as a recuperation day. So I'm excited, Alex. I'm excited.
Happy birthday, by the way.
Thank you.
I mean, it's 4 days early at the time of recording, but 1 day late as of the time of release. So, average it out. I'm mostly there.
You're mostly there.
What's on tap? What are the top of Sean Con's hot games list?
All right, so okay, let's see here. So coming in from out of town, I've got Ellie. He will be a 3rd time Sean Con attendee. He's one of the Sean Con founders.
Yes.
My buddy Mitch, he will be coming out. This will be his 2nd time at Sean Con, and I will for the first time get to meet his wife Jamie, which I'm very excited about. The other Sean Con founder, Andy, canceled at the last minute. Canceled at the last minute. And he said he suddenly had a trip come up to California for work. I don't believe him. I think he forgot to buy a plane ticket and then saw the prices and then changed his mind. That's what I think. I think he's a big fat liar. We'll see. I will, of course, demand proof and hopefully that will be forthcoming.
Are there refunds on Sean Con badges?
There are not.
Okay.
But they're free. So, I mean,
Sure.
Not a bad deal. And then we got a bunch of locals that are going to be here. And so tomorrow, Thursday, I'm going to be meeting Mitch and his wife. We're probably going to do some sort of breakfast. We're going to go pick up we're going to pick up Ellie at the airport, maybe get some pool time at the hotel we're staying at, and then head over to Empire. I think we pick up Ellie's wife later that night. Friday's a bit of a controversy, Alex, because originally the plan had been to do some sort of catered dinner and private karaoke in the space adjacent to Empire that's vacant. And then Rory gave me the okay on it, and then he's like, no, can't do it. I'm like, okay. He's like, well, how about this restaurant that we frequent? They've got the side room. I'll talk to them. It's a done deal. I'll make it happen. He finally confirms today, 2 days before the karaoke, they're not cool with it. So now Rory strikes again.
Yep.
Anyway, so we're kind of scrambling for Friday night because we could go to the piano bar, which is a Sean Con tradition, but we're not all super comfortable with that. It's usually pretty packed. People are screaming and singing at the top of their lungs. Not super crazy about that. So we'll figure something out. And then we'll be doing gaming Friday and Saturday. And then Sunday is kind of the chill day. Ellie and Mitch are leaving that day, but we are going to be doing Black Widow Sunday morning. I got us a private screening Sunday morning, 11:40 a.m. It's going to be pretty sweet. Super excited. I'm a big Marvel junkie. Alex, are you watching Loki? You're not watching Loki, are you?
No, absolutely not.
What?
I haven't seen it. I haven't seen any of the Thor movies.
Okay. Did you watch Falcon and Winter Soldier?
No.
Did you watch WandaVision? No.
No.
All right. Well, get out of my face. All right. Whatever.
I wasn't in your face. I'm way over here, man.
Well, you're close enough. You're too close for comfort, Alex. So anyway, it's Sean Conn. I'm feeling good. We typically kind of do a little bit of Sean Conn as part of the episode, and for whatever reason, we didn't. It didn't even come up in discussion, really, did it?
Well, hang on. We can call a midway audible here. If you want to do a Sean Conn segment that goes in after the double take, or before, or wherever else. No?
No, I don't, because the last thing I want to be doing is editing Sunday night last minute after I've dropped off Ellie at the airport. I'm going to be exhausted. I am going to be tired for various other reasons. It's not something. No, we're good. We're certainly good.
I'm cool with it, man. You want to do it, you go for it.
No. But I'm sure in the following episode, I'll have plenty of things to regale everyone with about Sean Conn. I am guessing not a lot of new plays, because we tend to use Sean Conn for old favorites. So
Kemet is certainly getting played, yes?
Kemet's going to probably hit the table. I just got the expansion to Space Corp, or Space Court.
Yes.
Space Court, as you know it. I just got that in. I'd like to see that hit the table. That's definitely in the works. Friday night, if we have enough people at any point, we might try 2 Rooms and a Boom, which we haven't played in a long, long time.
Oh yeah.
I think we'll have the player count for that. I'd love to get some Resistance Avalon in. I think that would be really good. And then maybe there might be an early morning, possibly Sunday morning. Ellie and I might do very early morning Sunday Combat Commander.
Okay.
So that's kind of, other than that's kind of up in the air. We've got, Mitch's wife, Jamie, is kind of newer to gaming, so we want to make sure that we're getting things in that she's comfortable with. And in fact, I also should mention, remember, Alex, last week I talked about Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines from Renegade Games. So shout out to our listener, Joshi and Gurr. He put on the guild. He's like, hey, Vampire the Eternal Struggle, the 1994 card game that Vampire Bloodlines draws some influence from, the second Richard Garfield CCG, it's still around. It's actually in its 5th edition. There's kind of a print and play aspect to it, but he tipped me off to it, and so I checked it out, and I wound up ordering a copy of the 5th edition starter box, which basically has 5 pre-constructed decks, all of the tokens that you would need, and I got it from a little place called KGS Cards, which is like apparently the exclusive distributor. It's like the only way to get it unless you go to like drive-through cards and order them printed up. But I got it from them, and I messaged the guy and I said, "Hey, I've got this thing coming up. What can I do to expedite it? I'd love to get it here before this weekend." And he's like, "Don't worry about it. I got you covered. I'm getting out the door today." And it arrived last night. Read the rule book. It plays best at 4 or 5 players, and so hopefully we can get that to the table, because we've got some players that that we played it a bit when we were younger. So I'm looking forward to that.
Very nice.
Okay, Alex, how about you? How you doing?
Well, I gotta much like always, Sean. I gotta carry the load of the show because someone doesn't have any new plays.
In my defense, tonight is Dukes of Dice game night, which is when I would be getting some new plays in, and we're recording. So hey.
And who made the decision to record then?
Well, when else were we going to record? Let's see that, or delay the episode. Did you want to delay the episode?
Nah, not really.
We can cut it right now. We can cut it.
I just like giving you a hard time. I have enough plays for the both of us, Sean. Don't worry.
Perfect.
This past weekend, I played so many games. So many games that weren't even new games. As an example, I taught Abby Viticulture, which we've had on the shelf for a while. Hadn't played in a long time. This is a Ducal Boxcars Award winner from Stonemaier Games, winery worker placement game. Sean, it turns out if you want to win in viticulture, you actually have to make wine consistently at some point in the game. You have to plant grapes and harvest them and make wine instead of just playing visitor cards and having people visit the whole time. Anyway, my whole strategy of not making wine in the winemaking game did not pay off. Abby won her first play of this. Seemed to enjoy it. So played that. Played her sister Jana was visiting us, and she is a big time board gamer. Plays Gloomhaven all the time.
Oh, nice.
And yeah, we played a whole bunch of stuff. But I'll jump back a little bit, Sean, because on Saturday we had an afternoon game day where we just played a bunch of shorter games. It was myself, it was Jamie, it was Joe, also from Stonemeyer Games, and it was Patrick. And we started off with some Crash Octopus, which I talked about last episode. This is a dexterity game where you're playing various ships, trying to scoop up treasure, and trying to bounce dice off of an octopus's head in order to sabotage other people and knock treasure off their boat. It's a goofy, ridiculous, amazing game. On the final dice drop of this game, Joe was set to win, and someone dropped it off the octopus, and it went across the table and knocked all 3 treasures off of his boat on the very last drop. It was amazing. It was an incredible throw. It was an incredible moment. Big reaction. That was cool. From there, Sean, we went ahead and played Groundhog Day. This is from Funko Games and Prospero Hall. This is, so it's based off of the movie Groundhog Day, which I have seen, starring Bill Murray. I've not only seen the movie, Sean, I have also seen the musical. My cousin starred in a version of it in San Francisco. Not in any kind of, crazy lead role, but part of the cast. It didn't, nothing that really stuck out in terms of a catchy song from that one. But whatever, it's Groundhog Day the musical. Groundhog Day the board game, Sean, is an awful lot like The Mind in many ways. How this works is you have a deck of cards, 1 through 12, in 5 different suits. The goal of the game is to have the perfect day. Basically, play 7 cards representing a perfect day. Each one of these 60 cards represents a moment or line in the movie. And the days, as mentioned, are supposed to get progressively better. And the game simulates this and incentivizes this by each of the cards has a heart value on it. And so day 1, you're trying to play, again, ascending lowest to highest, 7 cards between going up from 1 to 12, that add up to as few hearts as possible on day 1. The next day, you're going to deal out fewer cards, and you have to have more hearts in that next day combined. And then the next day, you'll deal out fewer and have to add more hearts until you either get to the end of the 7th day and you've screwed up and haven't done it, or you play the perfect day. 7 of these red cards that represent the best, the perfect day in the movie. That one last one where he triumphantly... I'm not going to spoil the movie. I mean, I guess I could. It came out a very long time ago. Anyway, this has really charming art. It has a cool mechanic to it. Again, featuring that kind of Mind style with this idea of continuous improvement. If you're a fan of the movie, I think you'll appreciate a lot of the references in it. I played this game over the course of this weekend. We played it twice in person with that whole group. And then I played it with Jana and Abby. We played 2 games of this as a different group. I borrowed it from Jamie. That's his copy. So that's Groundhog Day from Prospero Hall. And
real quick, because I don't know that you, for people that aren't familiar with the movie, because this is what, late 80s, early 90s?
I think late 80s. I think so it's 80s.
The premise is Bill Murray's a weather...
Yeah, he's a meteorologist.
Yeah, meteorologist. And the day keeps repeating for him, right? No matter what he does, no matter if he... whatever, the day just keeps repeating. The theory, Alex, is that he actually lived 10,000 years worth of time in order to do all of the things that he did, to master all the things that he did.
Wow.
So he's actually like this godlike entity now.
According to this game, you only get 7.
Well, 10,000 years. Math checks out.
Okay. Next one I'll talk about, Sean, is Abandon All Artichokes. This is a game from Game Right Games, designed by Emma Larkins, and it is a game where you are quite literally trying to abandon all the artichokes. It is a deck builder/deconstructor. You win the game by, if you draw a 5-card hand at the end of the round that does not have any artichokes in it, you win the game. The deck itself comes with 10 artichoke cards to start, and then on your turn, you're going to harvest one of the vegetables from the middle. It could be something like peas or carrots or broccoli, all of which have different things that impact other people. For instance, beets, if I recall correctly, allow you to swap one of your cards at random with another player. If they're both artichokes, great, they get composted. If there's something that's not both artichokes, you swap the cards, and the game goes on from there. So yeah, you're going to harvest a card and then play as many cards as you can in hand. The artichokes don't do anything, so early turns, you're going to do just one thing. Again, it's a deck deconstruction game, so you're trying to draw a hand that does not have artichokes at the start of... And if you do that at the end of a turn, you win the game. Really simple, really cute. You're supposed to yell out, abandon all artichokes when you're done. This is a great family game, as you would imagine from the name and what's going on in it, with a clever, again, deck deconstruction, get rid of artichokes kind of mechanic at the heart of it. Not to make an artichoke-related pun there. So, abandon all artichokes, yeah.
What does this person have against artichokes?
I don't know. They don't like them. Yeah. Yeah. Corn, peas, beets, onions, they're all your friends. Artichokes, apparently not so much. So
beets over artichokes?
Yeah. At least by the very rules of this game.
I think this game needed more development. That seems problematic.
What of those vegetables that I listed should this game be? Abandon all...
Beets.
You don't like beets?
Yeah.
Okay.
Stop beating around the bush is what should have been called.
That would be a far worse name for the game.
Well, if the game's about getting rid of beets and it was called Abandon All Artichokes, that it wouldn't make sense either.
Why wouldn't you just call it Beat the Beets?
Get beat?
Get beat? That could be it.
Get beat.
Get beat. Hey, bud. Get beat. Anyway, that is Abandon All Artichokes. But the fun didn't stop there, Sean. We had 2 more new games that we played. One of which I believe was a recent Kickstarter fulfillment from a publisher, Atlas Games. Designers Joshua Deboni, I don't know, and Nikola Rostesky. This is Dice Miner, where you are playing as various dwarf heroes. Sean, I had you pick between 2 heroes at the start of this game. My options were a prospector and a dragon slayer. I picked the dragon slayer. How this works is you have a very cool little component that's a mountain, effectively, with a little zigzaggy thing at the base. And you're going to put the dice in. You're going to kind of add them randomly, effectively rolling them in, so that they're all kind of on their side in a little triangle-y kind of mountain that you're going to be picking dice out of. You can grab, similar to kind of a mahjong-ish kind of game, I guess, would be the best way I'd describe it. You can grab basically the dice at the top that aren't encumbered by other dice. These dice work in different ways, so you're trying to build runs, starting at 1 and then building up. So if I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that's 15 points. You're also looking to have coins. If you have the most coins, you get double the amount of points. So if I have 5 coins and I have the most, I get 10. You, Sean, if you had 4, would get 4 points, as an example. There are hazards, which can be negative points, unless you have, say, Cave Collapse is one of them. Hard Hats is a way you would defend against Cave Collapse. So Hard Hats times Caves Collapsing equals points. Or if you don't have a Hard Hat to protect yourself, it's negative points for that. You can also have negative points for dragons, unless you have a dragon shield, which lets you slay the dragons and get points for them. And then there's also dice you can draft, which give you rerolls. In addition to all of that, many of the dice have a side that has a little beer mug on it. And on your turn, you can say, cheers, and kind of Sushi Go chopstick style, go in and grab 2 dice, using slightly different rules so you can get better access to different things. You are taking, it's like a push your luck game in some ways, because you're going to hope that certain rerolls won't either screw you over or will get you the run you need to actually get points. Poor Joe was a dragon, which meant he started off with Dragon Hazard to start the game and then never got anything to protect himself from it. And so he just took... his score was negative. It was something like 40-something to 38-something to 32-something to -7 was the final score of the game. It was some wild spread like that. Joe posted it on Twitter. Anyway, that's Dice Miner. Fun dice drafting game that plays over 3 rounds. Enjoyable. And then the last one, Sean, I'll talk about is a game called City Builder Ancient World. City Builder Ancient World. Don't mind me, I'm just furiously typing into BGG while I pull up information on this game.
City Builder Ancient World.
Yes, from Inside Up Games.
CBAW.
What?
Cabal. That's what all the cool kids call it.
Cabal. Yeah, Cabal. In Cabal, designed by Andre Philippe, you are effectively building a city, as the game name would suggest. It is called City Builder, after all. It is set in what generally appears to be pretty much ancient Rome. And Sean, when this was being set up, I thought this was going to have a between two cities vibe. Because how this works is between each of you, between the player on your left and the player on your right, there is a shared board. However, while this game has a cooperative mode, we played competitively, and it's not a case where you're building unique cities. Those are boards where you're going to be pulling buildings off. So what you're trying to do is you're going to build a tile on your turn and trying to enclose districts. When you enclose districts, let's say you enclose, say, a red monument, a green monument, and a house to build the monument on. A house to build a building on, effectively. If you happen to have on the near side of you, on the building group to your left or the building group to your right, as a next available one to grab, a red, congrats, you'll grab that, pull it off the board, and build it into your city. Or if there's a green one, green would be eligible in that situation I described too. You could grab that and put it into your city. If none of those are available, you're going to have to chill out and wait until you dig your way into a building that matches that color. So it's this kind of funky scoring system, Sean, where you have to have stuff available or build and dig in such a way to make it available. Meanwhile, your opponent is chipping away at the track on the other side. And the further in they come on that track, the less far you can go on your side. There has to be always one building in between the two of you. So you might pull off enough buildings to score, say, 10 points, and I can't pull off any more buildings, and I only score maybe 1 point for that row, as an example. And you have that going on your right, and you have that going on your left. It sounds convoluted. I'm probably not describing it perfectly, but it was, I think, a completely brilliant mechanic, a really interesting way to play, because it forces you to make decisions not just for, well, I'm going to build a bunch of red buildings because I want to build red buildings. You can't just do that in this game. You have to plan tactically based on what you have available in the moment and what you're going to have available coming up. In addition to that, you can also build rectangular areas that allow you to place certain other building types, which will give you bonus points at the end of the game. For instance, 2 points for every filled-in district that touches that one, or 2 points per every tile length of road you build for your longest road in the game. So it has a lot of different little things like that you can get points for, but effectively you're all just going to continue building tiles until all the tiles are done. Count up your score, and the score itself is displayed on those boards to your left and right, so it's pretty easy to calculate. That's the game. That's City Builder Ancient World, at least the competitive mode. I will say this, Sean. I really enjoyed this game itself. I found the system really fascinating. Some of the decisions you have to make are crunchy and interesting for a game that is not particularly hard to learn. But I did not care for the graphic design and art style in this game. It's muddy, it's a little bit hard to read and hard to decipher, which for a game like this is a significant drawback in my mind. Broadly speaking, I really enjoyed the game, but I think there were some graphic design issues that had it not go over as well as it could have. So that's City Builder Ancient World from Inside Up Games, a completely fascinating and, quite frankly, I would argue brilliant mechanic at the core of this, with some graphic design things that held it back just a bit.
Cabal.
Also played an exit game. Also played a whole bunch of Underfalling Skies, which we'll talk about in the review. Also played a bunch of Rocket League. Played Frisbee with that. It was a game-filled weekend. Really enjoyed it. Had a fantastic 4th of July. So there you go.
We were too hot to do anything, Alex.
That's why you could have played something new.
No, we were too hot to do anything. We can't. No.
All right.
We have to have this giant industrial fan on, blows away all the pieces. But anyway, high five, Alex. You and we talked about all the games.
High five. Yep, both of us equally contributed to that segment just now.
Yeah, boy.
Woo. All right, well, that's what we played, /I played. After the break, our featured review. Well, Sean, the Game Toppers 3.0 Kickstarter is in the books. And thanks to a whole bunch of backers, Game Toppers had a heck of a Kickstarter campaign, more than $800,000 raised to get more Game Toppers, new features, all sorts of fun stuff headed folks' way.
Wait, did you say 800,000?
I did say that amount. Yes.
Oh my goodness. That's a ton of money.
Sean, did you make it in time? Are you part of that group?
It's over? It's over? Like over?
No, it's done. I'm sorry you missed your window. But the good news, Sean, is that if you keep an eye on the Game Toppers LLC website, the late pledge manager should be open in the near future. Take a look there, and you can still get in on all the fun, get the newest features, get yourself a Watson, or get yourself, I don't know, whatever you want. Awesome game mats, rails, something cool to really take your gaming experience to the next level without getting a fully dedicated gaming table, which is exactly what Game Toppers is all about. Check them out, GameToppersLLC.com, because if it ain't a showstopper, it ain't a Game Topper. When it comes to solo games, and not necessarily tabletop games, that are at the core of culture, you don't have to go too far to find invading aliens as a theme. Space Invaders, Galaga, arcade, classic hits. Well, Under Falling Skies seeks to take that and put it into a tabletop experience that is solo only with a campaign that is replayable. A ton of features baked into one, but is this a solo game that really thrives and has you want to bring it to the table? Or does it make you long for the days of those arcade classics instead? We'll tell you.
All right, so Under Falling Skies was released by CGE, designed by Thomas Ulier, with art by Kwanchai Moria and Peter Boacek. So, as Alex, you stated, this is a solo game where you are trying to protect your city, one of many cities, in fact, from these invading aliens who are sending in these alien fighters, dropships, whatever you want to call them, from an alien mothership. So the way that this game is set up, you have this long vertical board. At the bottom, you have these two multi-room tiles. You have lower rooms, upper rooms. Then you have your city tile. And in the base game, the non-campaign game, I believe it's Roswell, DC, and New York, I believe are the three. And then you have 4 different sky tiles. So lower to the ground, and then as it gets higher up, closer to space, and then above that you place the enemy, the alien mothership, and upon that mothership you're going to place 5 of these pinkish purple alien fighters, and each one of them is going to correspond to these 5 columns that are on the on the sky tiles. And so during the game, you're going to take certain actions, and that's going to prompt the aliens in a column to descend a certain number of spaces. As they enter certain spaces, it may trigger certain reactions in the game or triggered abilities. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to attack your base. And essentially, each time one of the enemy ships hits your base, you're going to take some damage. Depending on which room tiles you have, will determine how much damage you can take before you lose the game. At the end of every round, the mothership is going to drop a level. It's going to continue to descend. And then if that reaches a certain point, you can also lose. Well, with all these ways to lose, Alex, how do you win, right? Well, I'll tell you how you win. You research, and you research hard. Along the sky tile, there is this research track, these little green circles with numbers. They range, I think, from 1 to 6 on average. And then at the top, it's 11. At least on kind of the main, easier tiles. And there are certain research actions you'll take in the game, and you have to do them at a certain value in order to ascend to the next level on the track. And again, if you can do that before your base takes too much damage or before the mothership has descended completely, you're going to win that particular game. All right, so let's talk about a turn structure. The turn is split into 3 rounds. First is the dice phase, where you're going to roll 5 dice. 2 white dice and 3 gray dice. And there's an important distinction I'll mention in a second. Now, what you're going to do with these dice is you're going to place them on any of the available rooms in your base. There is an important rule. You cannot have more than 1 die in a particular column. And so when you start the game, just sort of depending. You may have available to you, let's say 12 rooms. Again, it's 5 wide because these rooms correspond to the 5 columns that the enemy ships are descending through, and you cannot have more than 1 die in each column. So if I use the top left space, I can't use the bottom far left space, for example. So that's one important rule. The other important rule is that if you place any of the white dice or either of the white dice, you then have to immediately re-roll any remaining unplaced dice that you have. Sometimes that's a good thing. Sometimes that's a bad thing. Then when you place dice, depending on the number of pips, the enemy ship or ships, because you could eventually double up, they are going to move down a number of spaces equal to the pips, and whatever space they land on may trigger some reaction. So for example, some spaces have them shift columns left or right if they end up there. Other spaces may have the mothership descend early, 1 space early, and then scattered throughout are these explosion spaces, which means that they're potentially going to get shot at and destroyed by your anti-aircraft. So that's nice. All right, so that's the dice phase. Once that's completed, you're going to go to the rooms phase. This is where you're going to activate any of the rooms that you've placed your dice in and resolve their effect. You're going to do this in the order of your choice. One of the rooms is the AA gun rooms. I should point out that this doesn't actually have an effect at this point. It just reduces the number of spaces that the ships descend in that column by 1. You have your energy room, which is going to give you some amount of energy. Usually it's equal to the number of pips you have, although there might be a modifier. It might say get energy -1 or -2. Usually less powerful effects are on earlier rooms. And then later on, you're going to be excavating more parts of your base that will have more powerful room effects. There's the jet fighter room, which is where you scramble your jet fighters. And depending on what level of die you've placed there, you're going to be able to blow out of the sky any of the alien ships that are on those explosion spaces of that level or higher. So for example, if I place a 4 on a jet fighter room and I've got I have an alien ship on a 3, that'll get blown up. If there's an alien ship on a 6 that's higher than 4, that won't get blown up. So there's a little bit of controlling where these ships wind up and then what die you place on the jet fighter room. There's also the research room, which is really how you win the game. This is going to let you accumulate a certain number of points in a pool, and then you could spend points from that pool to ascend a number of steps on the track equal to the value. So for example, if I put a 5 on a research room and the next 2 steps are a 2 and a 3, great, I'm gonna move up 2 steps. If they're a 2 and a 4, well, I can only move up the 1 and the excess points are lost. You spend everything in the pool at once or not, or you're done. All right, so there's also multi-space rooms. So there sometimes 2, 3 rooms where the room does not activate unless you have all of the spots filled, but you're summing all of the pips on the dice, which can create some pretty powerful effects. Also, some of the rooms may cost you in terms of energy, which you will have to expend. And yeah, so you're going to resolve all of those. And I will point out that in the campaign, there are other types of rooms, but in theory, there's a spoiler aspect there, sort of.
Robots aren't campaign, though. Did you talk about robots?
Oh, that's true. So robots are not campaign. You're right. They're not part of the base game. They introduced them as an advanced rule. And basically robots let you install these blue robot dice. The blue robot dice break the normal rule of having more than 1 per column. So I can have a blue robot die in a column and then another white or gray die in that column. And then the robot die, it just uses its pips automatically if you choose to, but then you reduce its value by 1. And you could replace it at any time. You only get 2 robot dice. So something you kind of have to monitor there. But yeah, it's part of the full game. It's not in kind of the introductory game that they lay out for you initially. So that is the rooms phase. And then finally the mothership phase. This is where you do some mothership resolution. So the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to move the mothership down a space. And on the right side of the skyboards, there are certain actions that may then be triggered. One action is adding a clear additional fighter ship to the mothership, which will later get deployed. Another option is to, I forgot about the excavator. Well, I'll talk about it now. The other option is to move your excavator back a certain number of spaces. So an additional action you can take in the dice phase is to pick out a point that your little earth excavator is going to wind down the base, potentially revealing more rooms. So you can only go as far away on the track from the excavator as the number of pips you have. You then spend an energy, and then your little excavator digs out the tunnels and digs out the rooms, and now you've got these new, usually more powerful rooms available to you. But here we are in the mothership phase, and this could actually knock your excavator back. Basically, I think of it as some sort of damage to the base that's happened, that's collapsed certain areas of the base. There's also a spot that moves you down on the research track. That's a problem. And then, like I said, there's the final space where if the mothership reaches there, you lose immediately. All right. Once you resolve the mothership action, the last thing you're going to do in the mothership phase is to spawn ships. There's sort of a rule to spawn ships. I'll say this. It kind of evenly distributes them. You place purple ships before clear ships, but I don't need to get too much into detail there. So you're going to keep doing this, basically assigning dice, trying to control how the ships come down at you, trying to blow some of them out of the sky as much as possible. By the way, every time you blow up a purple ship, it just respawns. Anytime you blow up a crystal ship, it's removed from the game until some game effect brings it back. And all the while, you're desperately trying to get energy, desperately trying to pump that into research. And hopefully you can ascend all the way on the research track before you're blown up by this dang alien mothership. So Alex, that is Under Falling Skies, at least how to play it. How did this game come across your radar, and what were your expectations for it?
So I had been interested in this game for a long time, which is a little unusual because I'm not a big solo games player, as will I think will come into play during the course of this review, how that impacted or didn't impact my enjoyment of the game. I had heard really good things. BGG ratings for this game were strong. Buzz for this game was strong. CGE obviously is a quality publisher. And so my impressions, expectations going into this game were, again, a little bit mixed, right? So, some sense of I don't tend to love solo-only games. That's not something I tend to seek out or play a lot. But on the flip side of this, had heard good things. It had been sold out for a long time, hard to find. And when it came back into stock, I thought this would be one that we could play. We could certainly get enough plays of by ourselves. That's a benefit of it. But also one that I think would be interesting to discuss. Didn't know anything about the actual mechanics of the game, though. So,
Alex,
what about you, Sean?
Had we talked about this on the show in some capacity, either as a preview or I'm trying to remember, because this game was not familiar to me. I didn't know much about it. But as soon as I started reading the rules and it started talking about the room action spaces and the excavator moving and giving you access to more, I feel like we talked about this at some point, because it sounded really familiar. Like, this wasn't on Kickstarter. We don't really talk a lot about like upcoming games anymore. And so I'm just trying to figure out why it resonated with me, or not resonated, but it triggered some sort of memory of it, or at least discussing it. You don't remember?
I don't recall. No.
Huh. Well, I do tend to like solo games, although most of my solo game playing is either some sort of card game or some sort of war game. I think this is a theme that I like, sci-fi, being attacked by aliens, it's interesting. What was interesting, though, exceedingly interesting to me, was that they chose Quanche Moria for the art, which...
Well, I think it's the cover art primarily.
Well, it is the cover art. And is it also, I'm looking at and it looks like he's the board art too, just based on his style.
Oh, could definitely be the board art. Yeah.
At least the mothership. At least the mothership. And the interesting thing to me is, and don't get me wrong, Quanche Moria is amazing. He's one of the best artists in board gaming. But it's just weird because this feels very similar to an Alex favorite, flip ships,
Yes.
which is the same basic underlying game, just with just a dexterity flicking game instead of a, thinky dice rolling, dice placement puzzle.
It's the same theme, and the game mechanically could not be more different than yeah. They're completely different games.
But it's literally it's not even theme though, right? It's beyond theme. It's you have this mothership and these descending ships, and if they hit your base, you're taking damage and you're losing, and you're flicking things at them to stop it, right? It just seemed weird to me to I mean, again, Mario is fantastic, and I think the cover looks good. I think the mothership looks good. If the rest of the art looks good, I know we're kind of getting ahead on art there, but it just seemed weird. There's already somewhat of a comparison, and I feel like that comparison was strengthened by the same artist. Not in a bad way necessarily. I mean, it was just weird. Just like, okay.
Yeah. Hey, rules, Sean. Did you learn this thing from the rulebook this time?
I sure did.
Yeah.
I set it up. So I like how it's broken down. So the rule book, there's the first page when you open, the first 2 pages, is a very nice, straightforward setup. And it walks you through the 3 phases of the game. It's got good breakouts of rules, of explanations, what rooms do, what the special symbols do on the board. And then once you get through that, it says play your first game. And then we're going to add some other things. So there's threat levels where you can make the game harder because there's modularity to this game. You can flip the sky tiles to make them harder. You have different cities. The cities give you certain special abilities. You have different lower and upper room tiles. And then they add the robots. So I like that it kind of says, okay, we're going to have you play this initially, learn the basics, then we're going to add a little bit more. And then, hey, if you want to play this campaign, have at it. And it's this 4-part campaign, which we'll talk about to some degree. So yes, I did read the rule book. I'm trying to think, did I ever have to go back and reference something? I don't think I did.
I don't think so either, Sean. I think it is taught well, and I think they were smart to break down sort of the basic game just over one of the cities versus the other games. So the Roswell starter, and then add in some other things, and then add in the campaign. And I think the way that that's layered makes the game easy to learn. And you're right, I didn't have to go back and reference the rulebook. There aren't a lot of specific weird situations. And when they have examples, even on campaign materials, they lay those examples out quite clearly. So I thought this game was incredibly well taught, and I enjoyed the rulebook. It was well done and got me playing relatively quickly, and then had me understand the game on a deeper and deeper level. I will say, though, while I'm complimenting that structure, I will mention this even more. Well, I'll just mention it now. I played this game twice on the basic level. I lost the first one, then played a second time, and then I just kept stalling. Like, it was days. I would, okay, I got some time to play a solo game. I'm going to play Rocket League instead. Oh, well, I've got some more time set aside. Hey, maybe I'll break out Under Falling Skies again. Rocket League. And eventually this weekend I said, okay, I have to get in more plays of this if I'm going to, properly review, talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
And boy, am I glad I did, because my thoughts on this game changed dramatically just diving into even the more advanced game and then the campaign itself. So I would say that basic game almost didn't do the game a favor in a sense, in that it made it easier to understand, but also I almost didn't get far enough into it to really get to the level of enjoyment I ultimately had, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. So it's interesting that you say that, because I had somewhat of a similar experience, although different. So I played this a total of 9 times. I played the base game. I played the base game plus robots, and then I played 2 of the 4 acts of the campaign. And so for the campaign and each act, I think we could say this. Basically, each act, you are introducing you're introducing 4 new cities ish. Let's act one. Act one. Introducing 4 cities. You're introducing 4 scenarios, and then you're introducing 4 characters. And what you're going to do is you're going to randomly deal out a set of 2. So 2 cities, 2 characters, 2 scenarios linked together, and then you're going to choose one of those to play, and the other one is automatically destroyed by the aliens. Out of the game, out of the campaign. All right, so then you do that. You have 2 chances to win. And so you either win or you lose, whatever. And then you go on to the next 2 cities. And again, you're making that same choice. One city dies, one city you're gonna defend. There is something where these characters, and by the way, they give you usually this once a game ability. Later on, the characters can come back that have survived, and they have upgraded abilities that they have. Also, if you lose the first round of a scenario with a particular city, you flip it to a more powerful side, which makes sense because it's been beat the heck and back. It becomes more powerful because everyone's more focused and
resilient.
Resilient, sure. So I wound up playing 8 games on Saturday. I pretty much spent the whole day playing this game 8 times, and I made it almost through. I need to play one more scenario the second city of Act 2. There we go. And I put it off. I ignored it the whole next day. It was set up on our kitchen table. It was taking up way too much room. And I was like, I'll play it the next day and get it off the table. And I couldn't bring myself to do it on Sunday. And then finally Monday, 4th of July, I'm like, all right, I got to get this one other game played and then I'm good. I had initially intended to play the whole campaign, but I just ran out of steam there at the end. So it's interesting. You played a little bit, put it off, and then were kind of reinvigorated by the game. I played it a ton in one day and then put it off for a couple of days and only really wanted to play one more time.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll parse that out a little bit more when we get to gameplay. Let's jump to art and components next. Sean, what do you think art and components of the game? I have different thoughts for both of those categories separately.
I think the art is solid. There's so throughout within the rule book, there's a little bit of this like these comic book panels. The campaign acts have different comic book panels. I think the board art looks good. The graphic design, I think, is really solid overall. The iconography, no issues there. Component wise, it's your standard cardstock, not cardstock, but your chipboard for the pieces. There's a lot in this box, and I wish it had been a bigger box. So I think it's kind of tight, a bit tight. It's got wooden dice. I'm not a fan of wooden dice. It is what it is. The ships, the alien ships, are these little plastic molded ships. I think those are pretty solid. Overall, I think it's a fairly solid production. I don't have any issues or complaints. Yeah, that's what I think.
I'll echo a lot of what you said, Sean. It doesn't have a good organizer insert, really. They have big bags, which I've been using to stuff that's removed from the campaign. I've kind of set aside, but I would anticipate if I got later into the campaign, I might not have enough room in those bags to actually store all the stuff that comes from breaking down individual things. And so I don't know how I would manage this. I will say, and you didn't explicitly state this, but it's worth mentioning, this campaign is completely replayable. There's no destruction of parts. You can reset it super easily. There's little 1 markers for chapter 1, 2 markers for chapter 2. It's brilliantly done in that each city tells you, okay, you want the A side of this and the B side of this. The A side for the top, the B side for the bottom, or you need the F side of this and then the B side of this for the combo that you're going to use for this particular city. Yeah, the iconography, incredibly solid. I like wooden dice. I didn't mind that at all. Plastic ships looked good, fit into place. The little sliding mothership that comes down, that works well. I have 2 minor, and I say minor, beefs with this. I don't know if this is true in your copy as well, Sean, but in order to increase the difficulty, so you can play at level 0 of difficulty, which is all of the sky tiles on their main side,
Mhm.
and levels 1, 2, 3, and I think it goes up to 4. Basically, the flip side of any of the sky tiles has the harder track. More research is needed. The effects from the mothership hitting them are more devastating. That's how you scale the difficulty of the game. And it tells you for the campaign, try and play at a consistent difficulty that you're comfortable with. Makes total sense. There's a misalignment where if you flip, did you play with any of the tiles flipped, Sean?
No, I had way too much difficulty on easy mode.
On 0? I was playing consistently level 1. So one tile flipped. And again, this could be just my copy as a production issue, but because the track itself isn't centered, or at least wasn't printed in a way that had it completely centered, there's this not huge, but noticeable misalignment when you flip over the board that has it not look as clean or as seamless as you would want. I don't know, again, if that was just my copy or if that's something that they just messed up a little bit. It's not game-breaking by any means. It's just one of those things that's a little touch that doesn't quite look as good as it could. And then, at least for my taste, the style of art for the people, just specifically people in this game, I didn't like so much. I like the comic book style. Again, iconography is great. I like Quanchai stuff on the board and the cover. The people specifically, I just noticed were kind of, it felt like it could have been done a little better. But neither here nor there. Again, aside from, minor insert, minor alignment, minor art thing, I think overall, a huge success. And I think, as we'll talk about more in gameplay, I think one of the triumphs of this game is that it does so much with so few components. That you have so many different gameplay experiences without a ton of material there necessarily to play off of. So, really good efficiency of components. In any case, gameplay. Sean, this is known as a kind of crunchy puzzle of a game.
Mhm.
Did you feel the decisions were interesting, things you were enjoying? Did you like the experience of this game?
Oh yeah. No, I think it's pretty solid. I think ultimately what's going to hold it back in my eyes is just the replayability. Now there's a ton of variability. I mean, that's there. I certainly found decisions interesting, and I certainly found moments where the game made me feel clever. So like for example, it's great when you're trying to set up the dice in such a way so that you're getting the ships to descend, so they're going onto the explosion spaces, so you can send out your jet fighters and to blow up a bunch of them at once. I mean, there were games where I was able to get like 6 ships in 5 columns, because you can have that sometimes, all on explosion spaces and have a sufficient fighter jet level to destroy all of them. And that's really cool. At the same time, you might be making less optimal moves because you're concerned more about the value of the dice, not so much which room they're activating. And so you're wasting turns to blow things up, which may be good, may buy you some more time, keep your base from getting damaged, but maybe you could have taken a move that was going to move you up 2 levels on the research track, and you didn't, because you wanted to blow everything up, and that's fine. Those are interesting decisions. Some of the campaign scenarios have some interesting, wild special rules. Some were very difficult, some were really interesting, but yeah, overall, I think this is a very solid solo game, very crunchy, interesting decisions. I think the most brilliant thing is the re-rolling of the dice, the force re-roll from the 2 white dice, because I think without that, certain things might feel a little bit scripted, but because you can't fully plan, you either say, hey, this one white 6 is the only 5 or 6 I rolled. I needed a 5 or 6. It's the only one I rolled. I guess I'll place it, and I need to place it early too. That's the other thing, right? Because you may place a die in a column that triggers a ship to move and triggers it to then shift columns, so that it might get reactivated again when you activate that other column. And you're like, well, I don't want that to happen, but I really need to place this column first. Well, shoot, I think I'm going to have to give this ship a double activation. Like there's no way around it because I really need to make whatever happen this turn. Yeah, I think there's a lot to this game, and I found it. I mean, there was enough to keep me supremely engaged for 8 plays over the course of one day. Like it wasn't like, oh, I just gotta get through this. I just gotta push my way through this and get past this. No, I was ready to set up the next one. I mean, these games are quick enough. Breakdown and set up, at least from one game to the next, was pretty easy. Yeah, I think it's solid. It's just going to be a question of how often am I going to want to come back to this game?
So, to me, Sean, it's reminiscent in a lot of ways of a game like Coimbra, which had in one decision about which die do you draft, so many little decisions. And this has all of those little decisions, right? Okay, this column, I might have 3 things that are possible things to do. I need to generate energy to pay for other actions. I need to generate research to move up the track. And I might want to time it so that when the track, I get the science research penalty from this mothership moving down a row, it's only 1 research point rather than 7. It's at a point in the track that is more forgiving and less of a complete hurdle to leap over. How much am I investing in moving the excavator, which doesn't get me any immediate actions, but opens up things down the road? But by placing this die for the excavator, I am now locking myself out of any other actions in that column, potentially. Then you have, when you start adding in robots, okay, where do I add this robot? Do I activate it this turn? Do I wait? Do I have it kind of dedicated to research, knowing I won't be able to necessarily use it every turn? Or do I have it dedicated to generating energy, knowing that the more I use it, the weaker it's going to get, and I have to invest other actions to setting up future robots? And then, of course, I'm talking about all of this without talking about the context of the ship's moving. A 5 might be disastrous in this row, even if it's perfect for research, because that means this ship is going to move down and trigger the mothership moving, which shortens my game by an entire turn. And I think I made the mistake of not paying enough attention to that in the early game and being way too conservative about shooting ships down instead of letting a couple through when needed.
Sure.
Using that resource to its max of the city's resilience. So you have all of those decisions, and then, Sean, you add in the fact that every city plays somewhat uniquely in how it operates. I do feel like, Sean, it is probably to the benefit of this review to talk about elements from the first chapter of the campaign.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's fair.
And, Sean, you described the campaign beautifully. You set aside the 4 piles. The scenarios themselves are fascinating. So that first chapter comes with little target tiles, which they use in very different ways. Sean, I don't know what scenarios you played. I played the one with the satellites floating in the sky, the research satellites.
Yeah, I did play that.
Yep. So this is one where you have research satellites at variable levels above your city height. And if the alien ships pass through those or land on them, you immediately get bumped back on the research track. Bad news, right? You already have enough of a punishment from the mothership knocking you back on the research track from time to time. That can be devastating timing-wise and can force you to play really conservatively. Again, alternately, you can take the risk of, I'm going to run this thing right through knowing it's not going to cost me too much. That was an interesting scenario. The other one I had, Sean, did you have the evacuation scenario?
I did not, no.
Okay, so the evacuation scenario, you set these little target discs on different levels of the mothership track, and when the mothership reaches those, it flips one of these random 1 through... basically, you start with one of them randomly on your board, and then one of the other ones, 1 through 5, flips onto your city. And in order to rescue them, you have to spend that value of die on a AA gun battery. Basically, you slow down the invading ships and have them move a certain amount -1. So if I have a 5 sitting on there, I have to use a 5 on a AA gun battery to rescue that civilian. What if I don't rescue that civilian? Well, if a ship crosses and hits my city, I not only take the damage from that ship, any civilians on my city at that time are dead and count as additional damage.
Oh.
Yeah. Really rough. Really, really, really rough. Yeah. I mean, you have that. You have some of these dual-purpose spaces, these dual-purpose robots getting installed spaces. And then you have the characters, which have those one-time use abilities that come into play. And that's just the first chapter, Sean. Because here's the great news. if I want to go back and play those scenarios as one-offs, I absolutely can, and probably have an interesting and different time playing this game. With cities I didn't play with before, different combinations, different characters at my side. Of course, I can play through the campaign as normal. That's just Chapter 1. Chapter 2 adds in additional cities, adds in additional scenarios, adds in additional characters. And I haven't even gotten to Chapters 3 and 4, and my mind is already swimming with how many different little game modes and twists and tweaks on the formula are likely to be in here. Ways to increase the difficulty, scale it up, scale it down. And I got to tell you, Sean, you combine that with a really brilliantly crunchy system. You combine all of that variability, a completely replayable campaign, and this may be the best bang for buck I've ever seen in a board game in terms of the sheer amount of variability that you get for the price point. I think it's I may be crazy here. I think it's a $30 game. I'll look it up. Maybe it's 40.
I'll look it up while you continue to talk.
No, that was it. That was my entire point was the amount of content. Yeah. Okay. Miniature Market, you can buy this one right now for $23.99, and Amazon has this for $29.85.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah. This is a $30 game, Sean.
Huh. Yeah. No, retail's $30.
That's an insane deal. And it's not because you're getting oodles and oodles and oodles of components, right? You have little plastic ships, you have some dice. But man, the amount of different play modes you have within this solo experience is incredible to me. I mean, genuinely, I'd have a hard time thinking of a board game I've played that has as much value and replayability as this one does as a solo game.
Gloomhaven.
Possibly in terms of if you want to take like hours of play to price point, there's certainly going to be games that are going to blow it out of the water on that.
No, I agree. I agree with you, but I'm saying that's also one because there is a ton of stuff in Gloomhaven.
And look, all that said, Sean, I think it's a completely brilliant design with a lot of crunchy decisions, a ton of replayability and variability, replayable campaign, non-destructive. Well, we haven't gotten there yet. Relentlessly thematic.
Yes.
But here's the big holdback for me. It has, and this is reminiscent to me of Sean of when you would talk about hidden movement games.
Okay.
And you would say with a hidden movement game, hey, this is just a kind of mechanic that isn't for me as a gamer.
Mm-hmm.
And if there's ever a hidden movement game that broke that for you, I think you'd be impressed by it. But it's a mechanic that you would tend to downgrade a game on, not because the game itself could be brilliant, but because you didn't like that mechanic, your score would get knocked down. I think this game for a solo gamer, if I adored solo games, if I cared about solo modes, if I wasn't slightly bitter about having to hear about Kickstarter backers constantly railing for a solo mode in a game where it makes no sense to have a solo mode, I think this game would ordinarily be a 6 in terms of the amount of gameplay variability, all that fun stuff that it has. It is, I mean this, a brilliant, brilliant game. And my level of fun, because it's a solo game, isn't as high as a game that was, say, a 4-player worker placement game or Euro-style game that was equally brilliantly designed. My level of fun isn't as high with this as it would be with that because it's solo, because I'm not playing this cooperatively with someone, because I'm not engaging at the table with another person. Because I can turn on my Nintendo Switch and play Slay the Spire or Rocket League or Pokemon Snap or whatever else on there. So, does this overcome that for me? In some ways, a little, but it's still held back by the fact that it's a solo game, which has nothing to do with the design, the quality, anything of this game. Again, brilliant. I think it's brilliant. But Sean, you seem to have gotten sick of it. Would you peg that to you just played too much of it at one time? Is that a possibility? Or do you think it's you just didn't find it interesting enough?
I think for the most part, most games have a play count life, and they run a natural course. And, there will be some games where I will forever come back to it. I mean, and I think that's the mark of a truly great game. But I think there are some great games I'm like, well, I'm going to play it 2 or 3 times and that's it. There are some games I'm like, well, I'll probably play this, 30, 40 times and that's probably it. And I feel like I agree with everything you said in terms of how good the design is and how interesting the decisions are. There is a ton to like about this game. And I would encourage listeners to try out this game. If you have any slight inclination to play anything solo, I think you will definitely enjoy this. And I think your mileage may vary where your play life count on this will wind up. I don't envision me ever playing this game again. And that's not a bad thing necessarily. That's not a knock against the game. And I'll tell you what, I did go ahead because after I realized, again, the intention was to finish the entire campaign. And I just couldn't bring myself to do it. Not because I didn't enjoy my plays, because again, after every single play, I was ready. Well, the first 8, I was ready to set it back up and play again.
Yeah.
Right. And there's a part of me that feels bad, but there's a part of me that's just like, it ran its course and that's fine. And, not every game is going to get played an infinite number of times. It's just not. And so play this game till you're sick of it, or maybe you're never sick. I mean, there's some people that maybe this is just a game that they're going to play this 3 or 4 times a week. It's how they unwind. It's how, I go when I play Magic or I play Slay the Spire. That's how I unwind. But I think it's solid, and I feel a little bad, and I don't want to give the impression that I'm down on it. It certainly isn't. Typically we say I will never play that game again, and it's a 2. Well, I'm not going to say that, and it's not. I won't probably play this game again. I think the hard part is I can't walk by a table at a convention and it's set up for me. Someone's like, "Hey, you want to join us?" Because it's a solo game, right? I'm just not going to think to pull this out. And I think here's the other thing that I think holds it back somewhat in my mind. Because the campaign is replayable, it's less interesting to me.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
And I felt like, except for, well, I need to be careful what I say here. Because again, I went ahead and I looked at everything for Act 3 and Act 4.
Oh, see, I haven't done that. So I actually don't have any idea.
Well, because I knew I was done. I knew I was done with it. And so it felt like the choices that you make to either throw a city out or not, that's the repercussion. There's no other repercussion, right? It's not like, oh, because you got rid of this city, you are now locked out of this particular path of play. That's not there, right? The decision, the repercussion is that city is just not available. Okay, that's fine. It's not a legacy game. It doesn't purport to be a legacy game. It doesn't need to be a legacy game, but I did feel like the choices in setting up the campaign scenarios had no real decision to them other than, oh, I like how this comic looks, or, oh, I would really like to use this character. Oh, that city looks interesting. But I felt like, again, there was no, oh, because you saved Washington, D.C., you get this particular bonus when this happens. That would have been nice. I wouldn't have minded that, but maybe I'm asking a bit much.
It could be. I think you have to take some things with when you have a fully replayable campaign that's easily resettable and meant to be standalone scenarios that you can have. Let's talk theme. I think that segues actually pretty nicely into theme. Broadly, the core game itself, I think the theme adds a ton to this. It feels deeply thematic. You're tense, you're struggling, you're trying to have aliens come down. But it's not something like, all right, I blasted this one and I blasted this one. I wanted to blast this specific one, though, because it was really going to be nasty. There's not really a ton of that going on in this game. I think the theme adds to it, but I'd have a hard time calling this a deeply thematic experience. This is a strong puzzle. The game has a strong core puzzle to it, but I wouldn't say there's much added to the fact that it's space versus something else that might be coming at you or whatever else. Other than it evokes, again, Space Invaders, Galaga, some of those kinds of games.
Yeah, interesting. I thought that to a certain degree, the scenarios added quite a bit.
Yes, agree.
And so I did feel a little kind of on board with the theme and on board with the immersion. I mean, yeah, it's definitely, let me put it this way. I felt this was more thematic than Flip Ships.
Mm-hmm.
Or it evoked the theme better than Flip Ships.
I agree with that. Because you have different things you're trying to do. I'm trying to study these aliens, or I'm trying to blast stuff out of the sky, instead of Flip Ships, which is I'm trying to blast stuff out of the sky, or I'm trying to hit the mothership. And there's sort of some abilities that tie in, but they're not really thematic. This game, you have the different cities act in ways that are vaguely thematically tied to what that city is. Not always completely, but there's at least sort of an attempt to evoke a city in most cases.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that part's true. I think if you're looking for a campaign experience that's like a King's Dilemma or a Pandemic Legacy, there is something about impermanence. There's something about permanent change, about telling one story that has a lot of power.
Mm-hmm.
And I think from a storytelling perspective, the story of this campaign is not as exciting or interesting as the stories of other campaigns much like it.
Right. Yeah.
So
no,
I agree with you in that sense that there isn't some sort of cohesive telling a story, getting attached to characters, whatever else that you feel as much. Your interest is in the mechanical differences in the game and the scenarios, which feel deeply thematic, but not necessarily in some sort of overarching story, which, because of how they're trying to have all of the parts work together, all the different boards work together, 4 completely randomized different scenarios every time you play, that's going to lend itself to a lack of story because there's a lack of specificity to it. I will say, one of my plays I remember distinctly because all I needed to do, I had a robot in one half of a research room, and I needed to fill up. I had robots in 2 parts of a research room, and I needed to get a third dice placed in there in such a way where I didn't burn my city to the ground. And so I had one of my 5 die in that part of the thing, and then the other 4 were manning AA gun batteries.
Right.
Like just staving them off, throwing everything we can. We've almost got it. Come on. And that felt deeply thematic to me. And I think you can have moments like that in this game.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't say it's a core strength of the game. In other words, it feels really thematic, but I don't know if it tells a story that's as interesting as other games that have campaigns. So take that for what you will. Your mileage may vary. I think overall it adds more than it doesn't, and there aren't big thematic disconnects for me. But I think that's Under Falling Skies. I think your gripe is a legitimate one, but I think it's done in service of adding more value to the game.
Yeah, no, I agree completely. I do. All right, Guild thoughts. Garrett Wehrman said, Under Falling Skies is so good. I love the tension that the game presents, as more productive actions can certainly make for more problems as invaders descend upon your city. A ton of replayability in the box for a stellar price. Highly recommended to anyone that has the slightest desire to try a solo game.
This may be, it's this or Cabbage Head. I don't know which one. But this or Cabbage Head's probably my favorite solo game. So I agree with that recommendation that if you have not tried a lot of solo games and you're inclined to find one you might really like, this is a good way to go, because I'm not a solo game lover, and I have a lot of good things to say about this. Ziggy W says, Under Falling Skies is an amazing solo game in my opinion. It takes dice rolling and turns it into a good, brain-burnery decision-making game. The base building that gives you more dice placement options is very satisfying, and lining up your plays just such that you're shooting those UFOs out of the sky in a single round, is the smartest I've felt since COVID began. The 1-minute setup time, small table space, and quick play time means that I can get in plays almost anytime and anywhere, usually during the day in between 2 Zoom meetings. The different cities, scalable difficulty, and excellent campaign mode keep it fresh and interesting. The only reason I don't play this more is that Dune Imperium came out at the same time. It has a great solo mode, and more importantly, it's Dune. I have not played Dune Imperium solo mode, Sean. I will say I like Dune Imperium better as a game than I like this maybe. But I get why that would maybe surpass this. Have you played Dune Imperium solo mode?
No, I have not.
Okay.
I have not.
All right.
Yeah. All right. And then Aaron, our buddy from Boards Alive, says, I have really enjoyed my plays of Under Falling Skies. I don't normally enjoy a lot of solo experiences, but the dice placement, planning, and just enough luck to keep the tension up makes this one a ton of fun. And the campaign provides such a variety of experiences to keep the game fresh.
Well, there you have it. Sean, I am going to jump in and go first on this one because I'm curious where you'll end up on this. While you mentioned you don't expect you will play this one again, I actually think there's a better chance than not that I will finish this campaign, that I will play more scenarios over lunch, that I'm going to dive deeper, I'm going to get my way through it and see how I feel at the end of it. But boy, oh boy, I wasn't expecting to like this as much as I did. I was about to go on this whole rant about how I don't like solo games because I'd rather play video games, and I touched on that a little bit in my review here. But the truth is the campaign mode and the amount of variability and unique twists on gameplay and the scenarios baked into that blew me away. I cannot go lower than a 5 for this one. A great game will rarely turn on a play of it. And for a solo game and how much I enjoy solo games, that is high praise. I do not generally go nearly that high. And I will add, I don't think this is likely to drop on a double take. I think this is likely to stay where it is, and there's a small chance, but a chance nonetheless, that it would actually go up. I enjoyed this that much. I found the decisions that interesting. I think the value is unbelievable, and I think they've done a ton to get a lot out of not a ton of components. I think CG knocked it out of the park here. I didn't expect to be giving this game a 5. I'm going to give it a 5, and I'm shocked that I'm going to be higher on it than you.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny, Alex, because I do enjoy solo games, or I suppose I should say games that can be played solo, because there's, a lot of wargaming. It's played solo, but you're playing two hands. You're playing both sides. I think probably my best favorite solo experiences were playing the World War II Pacific game, Rising Sun, and I'm playing both the Japanese fleet and the American fleet, or the Allied, and so I like solo games. There is something I like the interaction of multiplayer games, right? I like the social aspect. I like comparing scores. I like competition. I like all that. But sometimes, solo playing's fun, and that's my preferred way to play Marvel Champions. And so maybe part of it is I have others. I'm more likely to compare this to other solo experiences. That could be part of it, but at its core, it's a really good game. And I feel like my final score, it's going to be one of those times where take my score with a huge grain of salt, because the game is better designed than I'm giving it credit for. Well, I'm giving it credit. It's better designed than my score would indicate, right? And so I'm very cognizant of that. So I said before, it's not going to be a 2. Did you talk about the scale, Alex? The 6-point scale?
Oh, not really. Just kind of gave a score.
All right. Well, we rate everything here at the Dukes of Dice on a 6-point scale. 1 is poorly designed but playable, not necessarily fun. 6 is an all-time favorite that is a contender for the top 10. Alex, you gave it a 5. I said it's not going to be a 2. Game has some merit but has significant issues, and that's certainly not the case. Although again, there's sort of a shorthand where we say if you're not going to play a game again, it's probably a 2. Even though I'm not going to play this game again, there's no way I can give this a 2. I am inclined to give this a 4. A good game, worth playing, just not all the time, belongs in the duchy. But I just feel like it's an insta drop for me at the double take to a 3. And I could see the writing on the wall. And so it's like, well, embrace it. Embrace the 3. We have unleashed the 2, which I'm not doing. And now it's embrace the 3. So I'm going to embrace the 3.
Man.
Game is okay. Not exciting. We'll play in the right situation. And I don't even know that I would play in the right situation, right? But I think for most people, this is somewhere going to fall somewhere at least a 4. I don't. Yeah, I think your score of a 5 is probably very fitting. But yeah, I enjoyed my experiences. I'm glad I played it, but I think I'm done. So
Okay. All right. Well, that's going to do it for the Duke's review of Under Falling Skies. A surprisingly high 5 from me, and a surprisingly low 3 from Sean.
weird. Yeah, it's weird.
You are listening to the Dukes of Dice, proud members of the Dice Tower Network. For other great shows in the network, check out Dicetowernetwork.com. Back to Alex and Sean for this week's Dukes Double Take.
All right, next up, our Duke's Double Take, where we take a look back at our review from a year ago. And I'm talking really slowly, mainly because I just put in the name of the episode as Sorcerer City, which it was not at the time. The episode's name was actually, We Built This City on Purple and Gold. Yep, so Sorcerer City, game we reviewed. And we had Jeremy Howard on as a guest host for this one, Sean. I gave this one a listen for the double take. You gave this one a 4, but you did say you didn't see yourself enjoying this as much a year from now. You enjoyed the puzzle of the game, but you thought that the setup and breakdown of this was such a bear that it almost knocked it down an entire point for you. That's how bad it was.
Mm-hmm.
Jeremy Howard gave this one a 4. He liked the game as well, but he put it firmly in the hall of good, not great, and said, yeah, there are elements of this game he liked, but he wouldn't stick his neck out for it necessarily. Sean, I gave this one the highest possible 2 I could. I said it didn't click with me, and there was just too much administration, setup, breakdown, and unintuitive iconography, and other things that held it back, and I just flat out didn't have fun with it, and didn't think I'd want to play it again. So, Sean, have you played this game since?
So I have not played it since. However, it has escaped the purge. There have been numerous purges over the last year. A ton of games have gone out. This was never one that I wanted to get rid of because and I might have said this in the review, I think if we didn't play, if we didn't play with the monsters, I might be able to play this with Chewy fairly soon, and I think we're there. So, I don't know. We'll see. I'm certainly interested to try it with Chewy. It may eventually get purged after all, but I think the end result there is that doesn't change my score. It's still a 4. Good game, worth playing, all the time belongs in the Duchy. But, if I were to get rid of it, it would probably fall to a 3. It's just going to depend on if Chewy enjoys it or not, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Interesting. Sean, I have here in the Duchy in St. Louis a couple of big old tubs in my new house of games to sell when I can get to a convention. It will not be this year, mainly because, say, BGG-Con, which I would normally love to go to in a year like this, will be happening right around when I either am about to have a newborn or have a newborn. The same goes for Geekway, but the added complication of Geekway is happening Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday this year.
Yeah.
Ugh. Not interested, and I have to kind of conserve as much vacation time as I can, to have more time with the baby. May is the next Geekway, so that is probably when this game will get sold. At a steep, well, I don't know, loss. I think you bought it for me.
Okay.
So it will get sold regardless. I stand by the 2. I haven't had any desire to play it. It hasn't come close to getting played. So yeah, I stand by the score.
Just to correct you, Alex, I didn't buy it for you. Our sponsors at the time and our Patreon patrons bought it for you.
Yes. But also you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
One guild comment on this one, which maybe is an indication in some ways. BJ from Board Game Gumbo says, Sorcerer City was a miss for me when I tried it back then, and it hasn't ever gotten back to the table, so not sure it was me or the game. Sadly, there are a lot of other tile-laying games or real-time games I'd choose to play before I would choose Sorcerer City. And I think he's dead right. There are plenty of other games that fit both of those criteria that I enjoy far more than I enjoy Sorcerer City, that don't have the same kind of setup and breakdown and all the other things we've beaten to death at this point. So there you go. Duke's double take of Sorcerer City. Scores don't move. Stays at a 4, stays at a 2, although Sean's could go down. You never know. So, there we go. On to the best of the rest, the names that didn't quite make the cut. Sean?
Yeah, so Ziggy W suggested, we built this city on magic and UFOs, which is kind of a little bit of a riff from last year's episode title. Did you accuse Ziggy of plagiarism on that one, or that was someone else?
On last year's episode?
Or was it? Oh no, that was last episode.
Last episode, King Everything is Splendor.
Yeah.
Who does make an appearance. In fact, I'll mention it now. King Everything is Splendor came with the name Checks and Balances. But King Everything is Splendor objected strongly to mild accusations of, hey, this name's already been used before for one of his suggestions in a prior week. Also mentioned he might want to hire your services as an attorney.
Yeah, I already sent him my attorney employment and fee agreement. So
good.
Just keep an eye out for a cease and desist letter, Alex.
Excellent. Well, I've probably ceased and desisted already, so.
Well, we're going to require an official retraction.
Oh, shoot.
And a public flogging.
King Everything is Splendor. I'm very sorry. You probably didn't do it on purpose. Is that good enough?
Well, again, the flogging. Flogging needs to happen.
Oh, okay. Well, besides the flogging.
We'll work out the details for the flogging.
I'll get you a flogging IOU.
The next con that you go to, we'll do the public flogging.
So he's referencing Czech Games Edition, and then he's referencing the kind of need to balance your city and balance different competing objectives, and yeah, a decent enough name. So checks and balances from King Everything is Splendor.
And then Alex Bastecki suggested Time Lords. That's kind of like a Doctor Who reference because he's a Time Lord. You've got their Sorcerer Lords in Sorcerer City, right? And
something like that, and then real time component to it.
Yeah. Okay. Wait, how does that tie into?
Sorcerer City has real-time elements.
No, I know. How does Time Lords tie into Under Falling Skies? Oh, because there's an alien. There's an alien.
Right. It's the Doctor Who. The Doctor Who vibe is kind of a space thing.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Yeah. Alien space.
I got it.
All right. Took you a bit. BJ from Board Game Gumbo suggested Hocus Focus, referencing, of course, the magic in Sorcerer City, but also the sheer amount of focus you need to be successful at Under Falling Skies, which we didn't emphasize in the review, but that's a hard game.
Yeah, no, it is. And then finally, coming in last, although just in terms of placement, not necessarily in terms of merit or value, is the Name Father, Steve O'Rourke, who suggested Make It So, which is a Star Trek The Next Generation reference. That's the command power of Jean-Luc Picard. I think that's how Steve put it, something to that effect.
Yeah, something like that. Let me pull up the full explanation.
Pull it up, because I don't remember the reasoning, the rationale.
It was very clever, whatever it was. It just wasn't the one we...
But Steve knows that a Star Trek reference is usually a good way to my heart.
The Star Trek Next Generation command of power when making life or death space choices, plus the creative attempts to build and rebuild your city.
Okay. Well, there we go. Good job, Guild. Way to go, everybody. Woo!
Woo! All right. Well, hey, happy birthday again, Sean. Enjoy Sean Con. Play all the games.
Games.
I hope Rory doesn't further sabotage your efforts.
Man, that's what he does. It's fine. I love you, Rory, but good Lord, man.
Yep. Well, good deal. Let's get on out of here.
All right. Well, that's going to do it then for episode 254. Thanks again to Jimmy DM90 for naming it the name that he named it. Which, there it is, Flying Sorcerer City. Thanks, Jimmy. We appreciate it. Until next time, this is Sean.
And Alex.
And Duke you later, everybody.
Thank you so much for listening to the Dukes of Dice. Today's episode was recorded in the Duchy on July 7th, 2021. Our theme music provided by Carbohydro M from his Prime Legacy album. The Dukes of Dice are a proud member of the Dice Tower Network. For other great board gaming podcasts, check out DicetowerNetwork.com. And for all the latest in the Duchy, go to DukesOfDice.com. Find us on Twitter at Dukes of Dice. Join in conversations on our Board Game Geek Guild. Find us on Facebook and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thanks to our sponsor, Game Toppers LLC. You can learn all you need to know about Game Toppers at GameToppersLLC.com. Remember, if it's not a showstopper, it's not a game topper. We'll see you back here in 2 weeks. Until then, game on.